How are you, mate? We are back for episode 5. How are you?
Episode 5. I'm good, mate. How are you going?
Yeah, good. It's been a good week, I think, for me. I've
Been a good week, yeah.
just
In
chilling.
Melbourne? Weather's good.
Yeah, weather's good.
Surprisingly,
Well,
it's about to turn.
well, I'm
It's about to
inside.
turn
It's
to
perfect.
rubbish, but yeah.
And I'm warm, I'm cozy, I'm relaxing, and to be fair, I'm just chilling.
Yep. Yep.
It's a rare thing for me, mate. So I'm enjoying myself at the moment in a certain way. So
Yeah.
otherwise, I just park it and enjoying everything. And how about you, mate? You're working from home. How's it all going with the family and online schooling? Actually, he's paid at
Yeah.
school. He's at
Yeah.
home.
Yeah. So working from home, that hasn't changed. I don't think that's going to change really this side of the new year, to be honest. From what I'm hearing, I think this year, in terms of the Melbourne coronavirus numbers and whatnot, I think that's going to dictate that someone of my level of employment will probably be outside of the office for quite some time.
Oh, wow.
So that's it's a bit of a shame because you miss the human interaction day to day, and just being able to chew the fat. But at the same point, given it's the middle of, we've come towards the end of winter now, I haven't missed having to travel to the office through winter, so that's been okay. But online learning, yeah, that's been fun. I think I'm getting educated as well, mate. Grade 3 maths and writing and whatnot. It's amazing some of those basic skills that you sort of forgot about.
So are you? What do you do that with them? Like, I mean, I've got Tyra's at high school. The other 3 are doing their university and that, but. Yep. So we're not really there for Tyra because she doesn't need us there. So do you have to be there with Patty, or is it just more the after-hours stuff? Because you're at work and Pat's working. How's it work?
Yeah. Look, we try and break it up to, by subject as to who helps him out and whatnot. We make sure we don't do the work for him. Otherwise, that's a bit counterproductive and doesn't really let his teachers know where he's at.
Sure.
So, look, we just break it down. We do bits and pieces with him to help explain it to him and get him through it. I hope we're doing an okay job, but he's probably picking up some bad habits from us. But yeah, I mean, you just have to roll with it. It's not going to be perfect, and I think that's something that we've been pretty conscious to understand pretty early in the piece. Is that we don't have to be perfect teachers. We just have to try and help him through it and explain it as best we can. And what he picks up is what he picks up, and these teachers have a full understanding of where he's at.
I'm sure if they feel something was missing, they'll reach out to you guys, and I know it's hard for them as well, and it's not easy to do, but at least there's communication between all parties to see what's best for the individual, which is good.
Yeah, that's right. And look, I mean, it'd be really hard for the teachers as well. Just try and think like in their shoes. They don't even get to be face-to-face with their students and whatnot, so it makes it really hard for them. But I think, they're doing a great job, I'm sure.
Yeah. It wouldn't be easy, mate, as we're all going through something, and we know it's not easy for all of our roles and responsibilities at this present time. But hey, we just keep moving forward, mate, and chipping away, and hopefully eventually it will start to pan out and work out, and we'll be back to some sort of normality, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, hopefully.
Whatever that near future means.
That's it.
So hey, I'm going to put something up, mate. This has been my day. Right. I did a leadership program today online, but I was tired, and it was a thing. But I'll tell you what this is. I watched this today. What is it?
That is Moneyball, my friend.
Moneyball.
So you know the movie? I do know the movie. I know it reasonably well. I've watched it, I think, twice. I'll probably watch it again now that you just showed me that.
Yeah, I was getting a bit. I was into all this. There's a lot of things I'm doing here. There's a lot of documents I'm reading and putting together and cutting and pasting and looking at leaderships, and I'm watching some things. I thought, I was just tired. I want to watch something I really enjoyed and something that's different, unique, and Moneyball just kept popping up in my head, and I've seen it about 5 times now. I just love the concept of the going outside the square thinking and seeing things from a different perspective and testing and trying something that no one's prepared to do, and everyone's living the old ways and the robotic ways, and they went for something different, unique, and it nearly paid off.
Really paid off. And then from memory, do we want to give away the ending of that movie or not?
Oh,
we can, can't we?
I'm sure we can.
We can. So don't the Boston Red Sox then rip that concept from them the following season and win the World Championship?
Yeah, and there's also, and to not spoil too much, but there was also an opportunity for a certain individual to actually help implement that. But he decided to decline and do what he wanted to do, and he knew where he wanted to be. But it was amazing how it just changed the way they saw from the old school scouting to you start looking at, it's called submetrics or something. It's where they analyze in game situations or in game activity, and then it's all collected and and it spits out answers to the questions you're asking, and it's just based on numbers. It's not actually based on, hey, Aaron Benson's got X, Y, Z, and it's just numbers. The numbers say it all.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, that's right. So one of the characters doesn't move out of loyalty, isn't it? Loyalty is a funny thing.
Oh yeah, but that's also goes back to what you do and why you do it. I mean, we did a leadership thing today about we watched a video that I found that was I thought was very. I don't really rely on YouTube videos to use as a presentation, but I found one from Simon. What's his last name? Simon. Anyway, it was just amazing, and it just covered all the areas. And where was I going with that? But just comes across with leadership, loyalty, and how you just chip away and don't look for the big paycheck. And if you love what you do and they invite you in, well, you should just stay there. Don't like your job, love your job, and do anything you can for that job that you love. And this represents the whole thing. And then Moneyball, watching that afterwards, just like it's been the top of the day.
Brilliant.
It's like me, mate. I'm not making much money, but I'm loving what I'm doing. With CS and what it stands for. So I get it, love it, and it's a passion.
Great topic of conversation. Now, actually, jog my memory. So our last episode, we actually spoke. Did we mention Moneyball? We were talking about stats, weren't we? We're going to talk about stats this week or something like that.
I don't know if we actually spoke about
good leading.
I can't remember because if we did, it might have been part of the reason why it went back into my
in your psyche there, mate.
I'm triggering you to watch it. So maybe it was triggered from last week. We did discuss the word stats.
We did.
Stats.
Yep.
So I'm interested to know some things about stats on how you see it. Again, doesn't mean right or wrong. How I see it doesn't mean it's right and wrong.
Yeah.
And together we might create something else about stats that we never thought of.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I mean, look, yes, I look at stats. I guess, like you said, everyone looks at stats differently, and probably it depends on your coaching philosophy around what sort of stats you sort of look at, mindful of. For me, one of the things I look at straight away whenever I pick up a stat sheet for Big V and whatnot is always the rebound count, for example. That's just the dirty work sort of thing. That's always the dirty work stat. Probably, obviously, you got the optics of the game and whatnot, but that always gives you an indication of how you're sort of traveling there with the dirty work and cleaning up possessions and that sort of thing. The other thing is, and again, this is probably more aligned to my philosophy, is generally around the assist to turnover ratio. So, A, are you taking care of the ball? B, are you getting the ball through different sets of hands? And, generally the scoreboard will tell you if you've been getting good shots or not. You always want to have your assists higher than your turnovers. Shows you're sharing the ball and probably getting good shots at the end of the day. And the team's probably working in really good rhythm and whatnot. So, those are probably the two stats I tend to look at straight away.
So the defensive boards make sense. It's a pretty easy one that you really can't see from any different perspective. I don't think, like you said, it's about the blue collar worker. They get their hands dirty, and we know who's getting the hard ball gets and fighting for those second efforts and try and create opportunity for the offensive end. So turnovers, it's probably one that we can start with discussions. So do you base it on the individual or the team turnover?
Look, I find it's generally individual. Team, I should say, not individual, because probably describes the flow of the game and describes how we're sort of functioning down the offensive end. Sometimes it can highlight individuals if someone's being a bit excessive and whatnot. I mean, that can happen sometimes. So there's probably two levels of that. One, if you look at it at a team level, you're sort of thinking, well, how are we sort of functioning as a team down the offensive end, and how are we moving the ball about, or we forcing too much or trying to create something that's not there. And then if it is individual, it's more or less about the coaching perhaps and about a bit of direction, bit of guidance, that sort of thing. So you can sort of you look at it two different ways.
So expand on that one on the individual for me, and I'm going in a direction. I'll just see where you lead it.
Yeah.
Is it based on the individual that's got the turnover on their actual sheet against their name, which I'm not all for and totally against because of certain situations, certain scenarios that we don't see.
Yeah.
Because the receiver could be the problem. The passer may create a great opportunity, or there was an open opportunity that was neglected by the receiver or the potential person to whatever the scenario is.
Yeah.
And just laziness. Just didn't work hard for. If it was a bad pass, I made a bad pass. You can make a bad pass look good, but I just question that. How do we make it a better and understand to see those turnovers less against the person's name, because not always their turnover is probably what I'm getting at.
Yeah, that makes sense. No. So, I mean, again, I'll probably put myself in the assistant coach role that I occupy a big V level where we look at the stats after every quarter and whatnot. So, yeah, if someone is starting to stand out in terms of turning the ball over against their name, for example, again, you're looking at through the game, what type of turnovers they are. Is it because of the receiver? Is it because of sometimes some pretty bad decision making? That can be the case as well. So that sort of helps you frame your message to that person at the end of the day. But it can also help you include not just that person, but maybe in the example where it could be a bit receiver driven, you're having that conversation with a couple of individuals as well. So that's where that sort of game of adjustments comes in. Again, it could be just a really simple, small sort of conversation. What are you seeing? What are you feeling? Those sorts of conversations already always helpful. And I think as an assistant coach, that's incumbent upon my role in the team. So I guess those are the sorts of things that I work through and talk through week to week.
Look, that makes sense, in the situation, when you get to chat with them. But the sad thing is, let's talk about young kids now who, when they're on their own, they go home, they get on the live stats if it's Big V, or they've got their stats they can access in whoever's recording the stats in VJBL level.
Yeah.
Someone's always catching stats somewhere. All they'll see is they'll forget, and they'll say, well, I've got those turnovers. They're all mine. They'll forget about the fact that, well, if they got 6 turnovers against a name, 4 of those might have been combined. Another one might have been the receiver's issue, and then one of them might have been just purely based on them. How do we encourage these players to really break down the turnover to be looked at from a different perspective, not just by the number, not just by the column, and the fact that it looks like it's all ownership's back on them, because they're going to think someone's looking at that. So if a scout comes in, or someone's going to plays in the season to get them next year an opportunity, they're going to worry about that opportunities will be reduced because of what's on that column. Does that sort of make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Look, there's a couple of ways to go about it. I guess again, the messaging is key, and the conversations you have with these people and what you're teaching them. Another great thing is always video as well. If you have the luxury of video, a video can tell you a lot. You can see just the lens of the game just outside of that individual. You can actually see how the play is unfolding. So it can be an education piece for that person or the team, or it can lead into many different things. So I guess those are probably 2 things that really stand out for me. How about yourself?
Maybe, I'll throw a question at you first, and then we'll go back to me.
All right.
The question will be, and this is just a random question that's just cuff. So if a coach had the opportunity to look at the game footage, break it down, and look at, okay, well, 6 turnovers wasn't that for that person, 3 were. The other 3 were based on whatever. It might be a team stat column, and it might be another individual. Do you think that we should have the opportunity to change that stat?
As in read it differently?
No, change it. So when someone's name is looked up in 4 weeks' time, it doesn't show that the 6 turnovers was theirs personally. It gets a breakdown of where those turnovers truly came from. So when we look at the real statistics and what they truly mean, this player is not known to give turnovers. Yeah, they're involved in 6. They weren't all their own doing. The defense might be applied really good pressure, or the receiver, the quarter wears or whatever. There's all these variables. Do you think there can be a way that can be, or am I just throwing something crazy out there?
No, you're not throwing something crazy out there. It's definitely, I think you're probably stepping into a bit more advanced analytics and breaking the actual stat down. I have actually, it was when I was coaching our under-21s team, we had someone who was really, really fantastic in terms of stat keeping and whatnot. So they'd actually tape the game for us, go home, do the stats. And I actually had a bit of input before the start of the season around how we can actually break the stats down in a bit more of meaning, in terms of what sort of shots we were getting, in the paint or in transition, that sort of thing. So we got a bit creative with it. In terms of why we got creative, it was more or less just to try and break down what sort of shots we wanted to get in terms of how we wanted to play. So I think, that's definitely something that's available. I don't think probably quite at a big V level. Unfortunately, it's pretty basic. But that's something that can definitely be done. I know that's done across, we're talking major leagues, so NBA, NBL, maybe across Europe. I think there's that ability. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's more based on shot selection, which I get that, because you can break it down on, where was it? Was it open shot? Was it a contested shot? Was a poor shot? Was it a rush shot? Was it a selfie shot? All those categories I get. But I still go back to turnover because I think that's what breaks a lot of kids' confidence is you gave turnovers. So the onus falls back on you. So you're taking the weight of the burden of a number that you're not fully accountable for, which I disagree with. Now, if it's a miss and made shot, I get that. We know the percentage, how they're shooting. Okay, we can work out the style of the game. Was it defensive pressure? We can break things down that way, and then we can explain to the child or the player in a breakdown format. I get it. But the one I struggle with is turnovers because the number can't change. No matter how much we break it down, no matter how much we explain that player, that number will always stay in their column.
Yeah, no, that's right. No, it can be a bit disheartening. Again, I think it's, frame around the conversation you want to have with your player. Best encouragement, I guess. What's your thoughts on it?
Well, I don't know. It's not something that's really that beats me up and messes with my head because as you and I, as coaches, we tend to deal with what we need to deal with and we do what we need to do behind the closed doors. And the kid we teach these and educate these kids to see the stat as we see it. And we believe in each other and how we both read the stat sheet together as a coach and player. But just some of those players, if you're not teaching it well or communicating it well, they'll always go back and just see that number. I just wonder whether we have a way to say, well, you know what? Let's break it down now. So there's at the end of the game, that's the turnover number in that column, but we might be able to move 1 to that column. We might be able to move 2 to that column. And then it just gives a bit of freedom for that child to realize that, well, they're not carrying the burden or the weight of the team because of whatever you can go right that game.
No, that's I don't know. I agree with that.
It's a bit different. I just think turnover, miss shots. Look, that's we'll go in that conversation in a minute, but I worry about turnovers. People beat themselves up. I made a mistake. What are we scared of? Making mistakes.
Yeah.
We highlight the turnovers. So now this kid's going to be more indecisive. They're going to self-doubt. They're going to struggle to think, well, the number's going to get to 7. Is that number going to get to 8? I'm only using 6 as a generic number, by the way. But that's how I look at it. Now, if we go to shots, okay, we convince shooters and players that if you're open, you take the shot. That's why you run the offense. If you take shots when there's a better option, okay, then we'll question that. But you're encouraging kids, miss or made. You're not intentionally missing shots, but take the shot. But turnovers, I'm stuck on that one regarding, is there a better way that we can less amplify how it looks? Because I don't think the numbers are a true reflection on the player most of the time. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. I think if that could be drilled down into and played around with a little bit more. I don't know too much at a junior level. I mean, if some teams probably do keep stats and they have a parent that helps out with that, we're talking VJDL level, maybe.
A lot of people know that.
And generally, the players know themselves how many turnovers they may have had in a game. And again, I think it goes back to the coaching. I actually remember one game in particular, under 18s game. It was at a tournament once. Again, this is I was transitioning one of my players into more of that point guard sort of role because that's the way I saw their development going. And it was one of their, very early on the piece, so they're still getting a feel for that role. And we were playing a game, and I won't say obviously who the player was, but I think they may have had a really sort of bad game by their standards early on in terms of turning the ball over. And I think it was more or less, and you can see this person is getting really down on themselves and whatnot and getting really frustrated within the game. And obviously as a team, we weren't going too well at the time. We were getting soundly beaten. But, I mean, we were playing the long-term game there around developing this person into this role and helping them for the future. So, again, it comes back to more or less the messaging around that. And I was pretty conscious myself around really trying to push this person to the next level, which was a role that they definitely wanted to undertake. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't pushing them there against their will, but it was more or less the education piece around that. So, I mean, look, that's why coaches are super important. I mean, the parents may see it from a point of view, this person's turned the ball over again. But, coaches – as long as you can sort of have a good feel and read for the game and what you're trying to achieve, you can sort of see a bit more below the surface of than the actual stat itself or the turnover that's being committed, if that makes sense.
Well, especially if you try and encourage a player to make instantaneous decisions in the now and confident. If they saw it and they tried to do it, that's a positive. But the stat sheet will say it's a negative because they just got a turnover. And we had some players, more particularly in one, but we won't say who we are. I won't even say male or female. It's in Big V where the stat sheet was showing high turnovers. So can you imagine the magnitude of how they were feeling and the weight on their shoulders, and they were a pretty main player. But but they started to feel as if the fingers point at them while they're starting to fall short in certain things. So we went through the game tape, broke down. 80% weren't them. Wasn't their fault. I'm not saying we're taking away ownership. That's not what I'm saying. It wasn't the same receiver. The way the offense was run, it was a bit of a breakdown in the offense, or a misread, or a missed time, or a great defensive read, which you just say, well, that was executed very well, so you can't take a hit for that because that's what you're up against. 80% of these high numbers that she's getting wasn't ownership on her. But how do you try and push that and promote that, and knowing that they know that perspective now comes down to perception, how it looks from the outside. You're getting looked at. That person's a high turnover. That player in the team is impacting this team. So therefore, kids talk, players talk, parents talk, coaches talk.
Yeah.
The other things I look at, and I look at it in a very, very delicate way, because I don't think we look at it enough to work out the impact of that number and how much it does do damage if it's regular and it's not looked at and fixed and repaired. It could be bad coaching that's causing it.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, that could bloody happen as well. No doubt. So no, I do tend to agree with you there.
So when you go shooting, it's like you said, you can break down different things. We look at field goal percentages. We don't know if it's a layup or inside or an outside perimeter. We look at different ways. Was a shot taken, under pressure? Was it double teamed? Was an open shot every single time? Was an off balance shot? Timing of the shot. Timing on the shot clock is the most important thing I look at. Is, well, you took the shot with 10 seconds to go on the shot clock. We probably could have got one more pass in, or maybe we don't want to put another pass in. We want to try and get a shot for a reason and try and execute another one, because the shot clock and the time clock could be at a different thing. So many different variables I look at, but a lot of players do look at their miss and mades. And I just wish that's another thing they can look at is, okay, let's look at miss and mades, or let's look at good and bad. The column can be good shot, bad shot, but you still may have missed. You might be 0 from 10, but you're in the good column.
That's right. That's right. I don't know how many games I've been a part of, and this is actually a really big learning piece for our youth league team a season ago. And we went through a patch where we weren't shooting the ball very well at all. And we were shooting a lot of shots between that 14 to 10 seconds on the shot clock. And it goes back to what you said before around getting that extra pass or two in and getting the better shot that we can, that helps benefit the shooter and the team. So that was a huge education piece for us. And once we started to figure that out and get a heap better shots, it was amazing how much more successful we were in games. So, I definitely do subscribe to that.
That's why maybe I'm missing things, maybe I don't look enough, and maybe I don't know enough. I don't know, but I don't see a lot of people breaking down the importance of time in a game, whether it be shot clock, whether it be game clock on game clock, back court, front court, the whole lot. How many it takes to get over the court, move the ball, pass the ball, second pass in, how many seconds that takes off. We actually train to those seconds.
Yeah, that's right. Game simulation, whatnot at practice, you actually get the shot clock out and going. I think if you're the young athletes, now's probably a good time. Now the NBA's back, in particular, they're about to go into playoff mode when you're going to have a lot more closer games. Those last 2 minutes, very different last 2 minutes compared to all the other quarters. The last 2 minutes of that last quarter, you'll see so many teams, if it's tight, really run down that shot clock. And they'll really want to run down that shot clock, get a really good shot to limit the other team's ability to have so many possessions left in the game. So if you're the young athletes out there watching it right now, just take notice of that small sort of stuff. That gives a lot of in-game sort of context around shot selection and, the quality of shot you're going to get in tight games.
Like say juniors now, by the time they get the ball over the centre line, you might lose 6, 7 seconds. Is it walk down? Is it pressure down? You're getting down through pressure. By the time you get the first pass in, you're down to 16 seconds, 15 seconds on the shot clock. Now, at training, you've been running all variations of your offense. It might be 5, 6 passes in, and you're excited about how it works, and you wonder why you can't get through the offense because you haven't got time. So now, instead of worrying about options 4, 5, 6, or the variation of the variation, the only options you got are 1 to 3. Or maybe 1 to 2. But what we're thinking is we've got to run the set. Time tells you what part of the set you can run and the most you can get out of that set. Are we getting taught that?
I would say across the sport at the moment, probably not that well.
Because no one's playing.
Not at the moment, yeah. But I think, yeah, definitely look at, again, I'll talk from my experience, and it's probably a little bit of a higher level than some out there. But you definitely want to touch on and cover the situational type of stuff with your coaching and with your team around shot selection and the offense. When you are delayed getting the ball up, when you're under pressure, what sort of maybe some cheap shots you might be able to get, some pressure release type of stuff. Yeah, I think as a coach, it's critical to cover. I think the one thing in saying that, though, don't make it too complicated. Simple works best. Always keep it simple, because the more simple you can keep it, the easier it is for your athletes to absorb that information. Actually, when they are under the game pressure, they'll make some good decisions, I find. What do you reckon, Daz?
Absolutely, and it's good to, if your team's struggling to get the shot off, or they're losing time on the clock, and you can run training and run a 10-second, not run 10-second offense, but run the offense with 10 seconds to go, and see what you can actually get in that 10 seconds, and then make sure your defense cheats and does all the things to really ramp things up and make it hard, and try and create some sort of reality or game situation. But I don't see enough people with the stop sign saying, okay, guys, we've got 10 seconds. What can we get out of the offense of what we have? We're over the center line now. We're going to get one pass in. We've lost it from the pressure they put on us. We lose 8 seconds. We've got 16 seconds left. So the maximum we'll have is 16 seconds. What can we get if on our first pass? We're down to 12. So maybe run it from 12 onwards and just see what we get out of that. I'd like to see more of that. But unless, like, I'm pretty happy that I get my teams to run a very fast-paced game. Ball movement's crucial. If the shot's there, you take it. If it's bypass the offense, you do that. But we implement the offense in that style of play that we have. So I've been lucky that I've created that style when I've coached. But for teams that are struggling to get that style or that movement, I'd like to see more of that. And I don't know if I see enough of that, to be fair. I think I do take a lot of notice, but I'm missing something, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I mean, like the system that we call the system, depending on what your philosophy is, sometimes you're gonna have to just adjust a little bit depending on what you have. If you've got players that can play fast and run fast and play a high up tempo game, that's great. If you don't sort of have the players with that skill set, and that sort of is a bit opposite to what you usually used to coaching, you got to adapt a little bit as well. So I think that's probably something that's really key for a lot of coaches out there, is just realizing that. I'll speak for myself. Early on in the piece when I started out, I had in my mind, look, I'm just going to coach this way, because that's what I really felt and believed in at that time. And at times it just didn't really work, because of the type of players that I had and the skill levels they were at the time. So obviously you just got to make those reflective sort of decisions there, and figure out a way forward that best suits the athletes that you have. And that, if you do that, again, we start talking about the whole bigger picture here. They'll be a bit more bought into it, and hopefully have a bit more fun with it as well.
Oh, spot on. And that's why, it could be a stat that we haven't even thought of, is how many times you're averaging passes in offensive set. And teams aware that you're taking 5-6 passes to try and execute some sort of opportunity. You might have to find an offense that gets you 3 passes in, and then get some variations off that, and just ways to tweak it and look at it. And if you're a slow team, you just move the ball a little bit better, and doesn't mean you got to be quick and athletic. But there's stats you can create and look at from a different perspective, and can change the way you coach and maybe change the results you're trying to get.
Definitely.
What I want to talk about is what's your understanding of plus and minus for an individual player on a stat sheet?
It can be a bit deceiving. It's a stat could be.
Right away, when you look at it, what's your perspective view? What do you think the plus and minus for most people reads as?
Well, I think plus. So I'm talking about it from a player's perspective here. If I look at my plus and minus,
go and buy the stat sheet. Go and buy the stat sheet. If you look at the stat sheet, you're a plus 24. Anyone, you look at the stat sheet and it says you're a plus or a minus. What do you think that tells you straight away when you first look at that number?
Tick or cross, isn't it?
I mean,
some people.
You're having a positive impact or a negative impact. Is that how I look at it?
Right. Yeah, no, it's a tick or cross sort of thing for a lot of people. Oh, look, I don't think so. No, I wouldn't think so. I mean, look, sometimes it can tell a story depending on that number. And sometimes that can be accurate. But again, this goes back to our turnover sort of thing before. I don't think it hugely defines someone's role, that's for sure, or impact on the game.
But how? Maybe I'm wrong. How is that plus minus number? What's it based on?
Isn't it based on a couple of different variables in the game?
Points scored for, points
against.
The person on the floor with X amount of players. So when those players are on, so if they spend 60% with player A and 30% player, and when they're on together, when they're on and they're on, it's a minus that they were getting for the team. So you could shoot 30 points with great assists and be a negative.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and I saw that one. I thought, a kid.
Really? That happened once?
Yeah, it was a 30-point player. Amazing CS, fast player, minimal turnovers. I might have had 5 or 6, but not enough to get into the frigging minus. So people are going to look at that and go, well, hang on, do they have any negative impact on the game? Well, no. If it wasn't for them, we would have been
in the game. Maybe.
So, again, the stat I look at, it looks like it's an individual stat, but it's a stat that's based on the formula they were with majority of the time throughout the game. Would you agree to that?
Do I agree with the formula?
Is that how you understand it as well?
Yeah, that's how I understand it. Yeah. Now, like I said to you before, I don't think it always accurately reflects that player's impact of the game. That's for sure.
You can get a printout on the stat sheet that tells you which 5 worked well, and I get all that. You can actually break that down. It's a stat sheet that you don't get unless you ask for it. You can actually get it broken down into group by group and which form was working best, and you can do all that. Yeah. But I just wonder, why does it go back to the individual? That plus and minus number virtually doesn't mean anything then, because we don't know who the form there is and who it was with unless you go into detail and depth of what that stat actually meant. That's right. It's a stat I struggle with. People look at, I was a plus and minus. I go, but hang on, you did X, Y. I've even had my daughter do it. Dad, I was a minus. I said, but you can't be minus. You did X, Y, Z. There's no minus in this. This is positive.
Yeah. And the thing that sort of counts against for me, when in my mind that comes straight away, is your hustle type of players. Those players that are out there just busting their guts and they get deflections and they got their, they do the hard stuff. They do the box out, may not get the rebound, but they do all those sorts of hustle plays for you. And yet they're minus 20 or minus 10 or whatever it is. So you can't, again, as a coach and as players, don't get so caught up in it at times.
Question, maybe I'm Chris asking. Why have it? Is all I'm asking. Why have it?
Yeah, well, good question. Understand the reason why you want to look at it, I guess.
You look at it, you see your points, and you see that stands out, and people go, but anyway, they're the things I think that I get that it's a big V level, but don't forget, big V players are still young. You got 15,
absolutely,
17-year-olds who don't really understand it and put a lot of pressure, and this is their time, but they're hoping to be looked at and seen by people that don't know who they are, or people who are looking their name up on the live stats sheet and going, well, hang on, they're going to be worried about that number. That brings a lot of stress on kids of worrying about what that figure means and doesn't mean. Hopefully the right people know what it means and they'll go by what they go by. But if you haven't seen the kid play, you'll go by the number.
Yeah, well, I think that's it too. But I think the other thing is, again, probably at the youth league level where I've been with the last few years, is the guys have been really proactive in terms of putting their highlight tapes together and whatnot and send them off to, scouts and colleges. Sorry?
No, I like when kids they do their clips. It's one move and every clip's a game. You think, well, hang on. If you're only doing one good thing per game, that's not a good clip to upload. If it was amazing one game, it's hard to explain what's a good tape to put up. But
I had someone explain it to me once that the longer the tape is, sometimes that's the worst thing. Nothing more than probably 3 minutes, and have the really good stuff inside the first 30, because sometimes that's all that scouts will look at is that first 30 seconds. So it's interesting. There's many different theories around it, around what your player tape should
fit 20 different games in 20 different moves. But,
I've seen tapes where it's just the one game.
And then one of the other 35 games you played. But
that's right. That's
crazy.
Right.
So that's stats for you. And there's so much more you can talk about with stats and how it can be simple, how it can be complicated. But it's amazing how important a number can be, whether it's right or wrong. The number has a lot of strength in how a player may or may not perform. second half or the following week.
Absolutely. I guess that's why. Well, I hope we're teaching athletes to live in the moment, one possession at a time, one game at a time. Try not to carry what happened last game with you. I mean, we're all human beings. We probably do in an aspect, but I guess that's probably what starts to separate the good from the great in terms of their ability to perform and get on with the next play, or then adjust and come back stronger in the next game and whatnot, next practice. Yeah, it's just human nature, I guess, at the end of the day. But I mean, we as coaches, that's where we're on the hook a bit, is around how we can try and help manage and teach players working through different scenarios and mindsets, depending on how they're feeling at any particular point in time in relation to their performance or their outside influences, or the factors that can influence performance week to week.
Talking about the word influence, good timing, because
Yep.
again, we haven't had a discussion about anything today about what we're going to talk about besides stats from last week. I've got pretty in a good way fired up and energized because I did I think it was nearly 2 hours Zoom with a private school that I work at. It's great, a potential leadership. So the kids aren't necessarily in basketball, so I haven't met these kids. So it was a via Zoom. I had to engage them. Engaging on Zoom, it's hard with school because they can actually mute their thing. So I don't know who I'm talking to because I can't see them. And if they speak, they'll unmute. The video will come up. I'll talk to them. They go back.
So or if they're listening.
Well, exactly. And they're engaging, and it was just really unusual for me though, because I'm used to seeing, I can still see you, and I know it's not the same as face to face, but at least I can feel something. So it was a bit of a battle, but it went so quick. It was amazing. And we spoke about leadership, obviously, because it was a leadership program, on how we can identify on how do we make, there's 18 in this group, how do we help them become better leaders personally, but not as a genetic group.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy to do because I wasn't seeing them, but we came on so many good things, and we had engagement, and they're responding. I'd be very, I'd make some things complicated to see if they were thinking, and they were responding with when I got them to answer. And so I wouldn't mind going through a little bit today, leadership, but then lead into it next week as a major topic. And what can be a leader? What do we want to try and achieve to be a better version of ourselves? How do we help to lead others while leading ourselves? Because you've got to be leaders yourself, let alone others. And what's your purpose in that leadership? Are you worrying about the title of I'm a leader? Are you worrying about what you can do for others and the effect you have on so many people as a leader? And then the title will come later, the accolades and so forth. I would love, because I was really, and I actually watched some YouTube stuff today and some quotes here and there, but I found a guy that was amazing. I was just entranced on how he spoke, and it felt real and raw. It wasn't a gimmick. It didn't feel like it was a robotic, those bravo chest out. Oh, I'm going to run through a wall, and then he goes home and just says, I hate those people. This person felt genuine. They felt.
Yeah. What was the messages, Daz? What was the sort of the main message or two that was coming across from that?
What he used in this, and I'm going to watch a few more now, is through marriage and work and whatever, is you weren't in love on day one. When did you work out the day that you were in love with the person you married? You actually don't know when that day actually happened, because it was a work in progress. It was you doing the little things and you chipping away, and before you knew it, you had this formula, and it was called love. You were just in love because of what you've done. And he said it wasn't because of it's how good it's when you went to the fridge and you got them a drink without them asking. It was off your own. You didn't buy them flowers because you had to. It was just that when you come home from a good day at work and they had a bad day at work, you listened to their bad day. And you didn't speak about how good your day was, because you let them just have the moment. You didn't try and shut down because your day was amazing. Theirs wasn't. It's just the way you had the happy balance. And then in work, same thing. And to be a leader, if you want to go to gym, you're not going to go to gym for night. You're not going to change tomorrow. If you go to gym tomorrow, you won't change tomorrow, but you will change in time. But that's because you're being consistent in what you do, and you're staying true to what you want to achieve. But the outcome won't happen overnight. And a lot of people do these bravado weekend, seminars of, hey, I'm going to save the world, and I'm going to do kumbaya and blah, blah, blah. And I'm ready to, jump through hoops.
And then next minute, it's just all gone.
Yeah, it's not a part-time gig. You're all in, you're not. And if you're going to be a leader, you got to lead by example. And it led to, and then I spoke about the words, which I've spoken to you about personally, about how I struggle sometimes with choice. and we upload something today.
Yep.
But at least that as well, you got to make choices that are going to have a judgment and a consequence.
Yep, that's right.
Leaders got to be aware. You're not just making you got to be aware that you're going to make a choice. The people are going to judge you or have a view on you. But there's also going to be a consequence of that choice, whether it's right or wrong. The consequence sometimes you just can't control.
Yep. The
judgment or view, you got to work out as a leader. Are you going to be able to be prepared to stand by your standards and values and be a leader and not worry about the judgment and still be able to make those decisions without being under pressure, unusual circumstances, and blah, blah, blah. I'd love to go down that path. What are your thoughts on just me just rambling that right now? What was your thought on all that ramble I just spoke to you about? Sorry, I've got you there. I was just talking myself.
Yeah.
I just forgot you were there.
You're right. It's interesting. You talk about leaders in terms of the example they said, or the doing side of things. Is that right? So I'll talk professionally a little bit. I've worked for a fair few different managers and whatnot over my sort of working career now. It's generally about the authenticity and the way they interact with you day to day. Those that will micromanage you, that's something that I'm really firmly against. Those that interact with you, is it just superficial? Is it actually meaningful and heartfelt? Or, they take interest more than, you just being a number for them and producing something for them, as opposed to, they have a keen interest in how you develop professionally and they actually want to help you out in that regard. So those are the leaders that I really sort of, those are the things I sort of look at in terms of which leaders I actually want to be aligned with or associated with or have respect with. If we bring it down to a sport level, we as coaches, again, it's more or less, it's about our interaction and our messaging, I think, and making those relationships with our players and understanding them other than just the player that they are. This person is my rebounder, or this person is my defensive guy, or this person's my shooter. It's not about that at all. It's just about who they are as a person. And what they're about outside of the basketball court as well. So I think that's the big thing for me in terms of leadership and the way I see leadership at the moment. And I think from what I've actually been listening to recently as well, I think a lot of our younger sort of athletes coming through right now are so keen just to build those relationships. And then you hear some people go, well, they're not that really sort of vocal, or they don't sort of aren't hugely articulate or verbal with you. They'd rather be on their phone or whatnot. I think that's a bit of I don't think that's a very wide sort of generalization. I think it's just a matter in which we engage with them and what sort of level we choose to engage with them with. So yeah, I think that's something that's an interesting topic in itself. We could probably go on forever about, but yeah, those are just my initial thoughts on leadership at the moment.
Well, those initial thoughts also, Joe, on this same person is, as you leave, you walk into a room. And I think I've done it before. We've all done where we think we're doing right when we don't realize we've probably done it wrong, or the way it's come across, and how we think we're doing something for the right reasons, and not realizing we're maybe doing it the wrong way. Is you go into a room, instead of going and tell everyone what should be done, how it should be done, you listen first.
Listen first, exactly. Yeah, and that helps formulate the decision making going forward, doesn't it? People feel like they're a part of that.
It means you're collaborating together. It means you actually, before you actually give your answer or your response, you're actually articulating, okay, well, where they're at, how they feel, what you're trying to achieve, and how you can actually marry that all up together and create an outcome. I've never been engaged before like this, and I was engaged, and we actually run the sports director said, look, when we go on live today, can we upload this video? So they did, and they were happy and no qualms about it, and they said it was amazing, right piece to put up. And so, yeah, I wouldn't mind maybe if we touch on this in a more contented, detailed way, and I wouldn't mind if we can play the video or share the video. I'm not really sure how to do it on this platform, but I'll find a way. But yeah, and look, I've even got books I'm looking at. I'm not a very good full book reader. I extract information from books, and I'm very bad at that. But at least I've found some books I like. I'm extracting thoughts and processes, and so they're things. Yeah, I'd love to chat, and we get a bit of content from what you're thinking, and where we're at with it. What would you like to do? I think it's something that kids could do well while they're at home. Self-reflecting, working out their purpose and who they are, what they want to be. You can also, you don't have to be a leader as such. You can have the qualities that I think you don't have to be a leader to carry those qualities anyway. If you can learn to do that and define that, it'd be a much better outcome when we come out of this.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think you can lead yourself hugely through this period right now. A bit of autonomy. And I think sometimes, and again, I think I may have spoken about this before, is the art of mind mapping and just figuring out what you're about as a person and what you want to achieve. Now's as good a time as any to actually just take a little bit of quiet time, self-reflect, and get those thoughts down on paper, mind map it out a bit, and you actually find, A, what's important to you, B, how those things sort of connect with each other, and then C, from there, you can probably formulate a bit of an action or tasks you could create for yourself to sort of bridge the gap between those and, flesh those out a bit and develop yourself. That's just a bit of a basic sort of way to perhaps go about it. But why not make the most of that time now whilst things are considered a bit of a downtime and your schedule probably isn't as busy? That's my thoughts.
Well, if you're serious about doing that, it's not a 5-minute thing.
It's not.
It's like involved to work at the first layer, then the next in-depth layer, and then the totally in-depth layer that's going to be actually define where you're trying to go with it and what quality you want to try and bring. I mean, I reckon I'm erratic the way I think, and I'm all over the shop at times, but I'm all over the shop next. I feel like I'm just got all of a sudden all this information I never knew. I know it's always been there, but me personally, because I'm normally working with kids and I'm on the in the natural real time decision maker, and I think of things and I create things. Well, I've lost all that. So how do I maintain that type of mindset energy? Well, I found a way. I'm looking at all these different resources. I'm trying to pull it all together and work out how it can help me become better or engage with in this platform better for other people to appreciate what we're trying to do for the reasons we're doing it for. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, exactly right. No, it sounds like you're making the most of your time at the moment, Daz, and hopefully this conversation can give some food for thought for others. I mean, speaking for me personally right now, I've actually had to sit down. It was actually probably about 6 to 7 weeks ago because I was a bit all over the place with some of my thought process and whatnot and what I want to actually achieve going forward after all this when the world sort of perhaps returns to normal. And look, me, myself, in terms of education, I've only ever done a Certificate 3 in financial services. That's what I did as an intern, my first job. So I'm not even don't have a university degree or anything like that. I mean, I started university and I did a year and I was great for the first 6 months and then I was terrible for the next 6 and I dropped out of that. So that's maybe a story for conversation next time because there's a few factors in play with that as well about where I was at that time. But I'm starting to actually flesh those thoughts out on paper around what I actually want to do in terms of my future study to help put me in the frame for what I want to achieve going forward. So on paper, at least, you got that there as a bit of a stepping stone to help you stand out from the crowd or compete in the crowd, I guess. And then hopefully if you can get in front of people, you can do your thing.
That's right. If you want, the knowledge is there. Like, I struggle because I'm not a visual. I'm not very good. I can read. I've got no qualms reading. I just don't enjoy reading because I get too lost in I'm worried about all the other things that I want to try and achieve. So I'm practical. I'm hands-on. I'm a tradie. I don't want to learn by theory. I want to learn by practice, and I learn as I go. And that's how I've always been. It's my background. And so for me, doing what I'm doing is new to me. Me taking notes. I take notes, and then it's just I feel like I'm doing something, but I don't acknowledge the notes I'm taking. But now I'm starting to absorb a bit of information. I thought, oh, hang on, maybe this is something I should be doing for the benefit of all. But if everyone does this and looks at what we have access to on the internet, I don't mean in the social media side of things. I mean in the real form that it's a library of information. If you're looking for the right information, not the generic rubbish that it can just send you in different directions for the wrong reasons. It's just if you want a knowledge to know about something, it's there to get. I suggest we use it for those purposes. And maybe we can discuss all that next week.
Yeah, let's dig into that next week, the aspect of leadership and developing ourselves. I think that's something we can go forward with next week, Daz, for sure.
Well, we did say that we're going to be short 30 to 40 minutes, 45, and we're at 50 minutes already. And I wouldn't have thought it's gone as quick, to be fair. I mean, I'm hoping the viewers are getting that, we're just chatting. If they can grab anything out of our chat, great. But either way, you and me having fun chatting anyway, and we're using it as a platform that people can share on what we're chatting about.
Absolutely.
So I think we need to probably head off soon because we'll end up going another hour and a bit. Is there anything you want to think of or say, or are we happy in the direction we're taking for next week?
No, happy with the direction we're taking, Daz. So yeah, definitely tune in next week. I think we're gonna have some really cool things to talk about.
I'm excited. I'm buzzing, man.
Yeah, I'm buzzing as well. It's going to take a great direction for us.
It's good when you can be focused on things and not have all these other things going on at once. So, mate, there's a lot of positive that we can get out of COVID. So I'll make sure we make the most of that and show people how we're doing that. All right, mate?
Yep. Sounds good, mate. Let's do it.
Love everyone. Stay safe, stay well, and always stay strong. If not, let us know and we'll help you become stronger.
Yeah.
Right?
See
Not a burden. Much love, guys.
See ya.
See you after.